it was very interesting to get the historic perspective on where you were 75 years ago. And so much of 75 years ago were depleted resources, particularly wildlife, but other resources as well, obviously the habitat that supported the wildlife. And we had very, depauperate populations of deer and turkey and eagles and otters and so forth. And those were our species of concern, and we did something about it. I think, and I think the governor alluded to it, that the species of concern today and the species in peril in ways that are obvious, climate change, but less obvious, which I'll talk about a little bit today, which have to do with the source of our humanity and how that's contingent on the quality of our relationship to the natural world. I think we're the kind of the species in peril now, and that's maybe the challenge of the next 75 years, is to bring us back in some fundamental respect. And that'll be a little bit about what I'll talk about today. And the rhetorical title for the talk is "What Need Is There for Outdoor Experience in the Lives of 21st Century Americans?" And it's an important question because we're not a typical group. I mean, I don't want to criticize your social science, Dan, but your sample stinks. I mean, this group is, what was it? 75%. It's a way of life. That's not typical. That's pretty atypical, and in fact, it's going the other direction. So let me see if I can work this thing. Growth of modern electronics, the time people spend indoors. As Richard Louv reported in his book, Last Child in the Woods, when a kid was asked why he didn't spend more time outdoors, because the plugs aren't out there. And the declining quality and quantity, but above all, access to the out of doors, especially given the other context, and fewer outdoor role models. I mean, and changing familial patterns and that feed into that, and a greater emphasis, particularly on formal, abstract indoor learning. And that's the context in which most children's experience of nature is today. Indoor, when they are playing outdoors, very often it's in a highly restricted and managed context. There's fear as well that impedes that relationship of safety in the out of doors and on their own. Again, the expanded role of formal learning and the presumption that the only way to success is through indoor, formal, abstract learning. The rise of the virtual in place of the real, which is very much part of our lives today. And of course, we know that. The overstructuring of playtime, and again, fewer adult role models. And we're talking about adults, but we're also talking particularly about the future of our species, which is children. The indicators are many. In the case of children, outdoors is reported in this one particular study, 96% of adults, it was their most significant environment, half of that among children today. 31% of children play outdoors compared to 70% of mothers. Children today average 44.5 hours a full-time work week, watching some form of video display, and less than 40 minutes outside. And the typical 8-year-old's home range, the area where they're on their own playing outside, has shrunk by 90%, a single generation. And these are just, bits and pieces. There's much more to be said that represent this profound change. And a basic question is, there's change, but so what? Does it really matter? Competitive in fitness today is rewarded not for outdoor play, or so we think, and I'll come back to that, but for this indoor, abstract, formal reasoning. And that, in our heart of hearts, our civilization continues to measure progress by the degree to which we are masters over and distant from nature, that we are, in the course of our becoming civilized, we become something else. We are, altogether not nature, we're not biological, whether it's measured in the way in which we practice our modern agriculture, our industry, our technology, our medicine, our urbanization. And I think that there's a fundamental sort of assumption that as we progress as a civilization, it is, again, measured by this ability of ourselves to distance, to separate, to transcend our biological roots, or again, so we think. And that outdoor recreation is, you know, outmoded, marginally relevant in a modern urban world. And that the call for outdoor experience by people like us is, you know, romantic nostalgia for a day and age that's past and no longer particularly relevant. You know, these are hard things to confront, but I think that, you know, you won't find it on polls, but I think you'll find a lot of people behaving and believing in this way. Now, there's another thesis, and I'm going to try to share that with you today, that our need for nature is not an amenity value. It's not irrelevant. It's not something that we can simply ignore or dispense of. That it, in fact, is deeply rooted. It's inherent. That is, it's biologically based. It's a part of our evolution, our biology. And that in doing, and in not recognizing that inherent need and repressing it, that there are consequences. And in terms of our health, our fitness, our productivity, our performance, our, whether you're measured on physical, emotional, intellectual, and I would even argue moral and spiritual grounds. That we will be, if we deny that experiential connection, we do so at our peril as a species. Myself and colleagues, most particularly Edward O. Wilson, have used a sort of a term to kind of you know, capture this notion that we have this inherent need to affiliate, and I mean affiliate. And while biophilia means love of nature or love of life, it's really not just love. It's mastery. It's dominance. It's fear. It's as well as issues of affection and knowledge. That we have this inherent need to affiliate with natural systems and processes, and in doing so, we facilitate and foster our health, our productivity, and our well-being. It's an easy concept, but how it manifests itself is far more complicated. The evolutionary logic of biophilia is simple. As you can see, the evolution and devolution of man. That we did not begin 10,000 years ago with things like modern agriculture, 5,000 years ago, the invention of the city, industrial system, maybe 500, electronic technology, perhaps 100, that the human body and mind instead evolved in a biological context, a natural context, not an artificial or human-engineered world.